All right, so we are a wrap on 2023. We're moving into 2024, which was by far my most restrained year. I was very proud of myself. We were getting ready to leave California. We were getting ready to purchase a house, pay for movers, all of that. It was a big year. And also, we had so much to pack. My gosh. For my birthday in 2024, my husband took me again to the American Girl store, but this time it was no longer the pop-up. It was finally the actual store, the new AG place at the Culver City Mall. And yeah, he got me 2 dolls for my 40th birthday. And the first one is Miss Lila Minetti, who my collection is Daphne. She is actually named directly after one of the characters in a series that I've been working on. It's actually the same series that Mallory is tied to. I was so excited that this girl was coming out the year of my 40th birthday because when I was Lila's age, Daphne's age, I was also a gymnast and an equestrian. The two were not promoted back then as cross training. Those were just the 2 things that I was interested in and I was good at. So those were my sports growing up. I was super stoked that she was coming out. Again, it was one of those things where people were saying, oh, she's just recycled interests. These aren't marketed for adults. Like, obviously adult collectors exist, but these are children's toys. Do they know about all of the horse girls from years past? No. They're excited about the new horse girl because this is their childhood, not ours. So anyway, I really do appreciate that over the last year especially, it seems that AG is starting to really recognize its adult collectors and make more and more space for them. So yay AG, good job on that. But us as a community, let's be nicer about the dolls because these are made for children. So yeah, I just love this girl, and she's in the cropped pumpkin pie sweater that also was part of my drop last weekend. She's just so cute. She looks so good in autumnal clothes. I absolutely love her. Just the combination of her features, the freckles, I love it all. It's fantastic. So there she is, my little Daphne. All right, the next doll from my birthday excursion, and there were only 2, but just saying. Well, she doesn't really need an introduction. It's Ariel. I've always been a huge Little Mermaid fan. I saw the film in theaters when I was 4 years old when it first released. And it was an important experience for me because I realized when I saw that film that there was someone, a human, who was Ariel's voice. And the very first thing I ever wanted to be was a voice actor because of that experience. The first singer that I ever emulated was Judy Garland singing Over the Rainbow, or Somewhere Over the Rainbow, when I was 3. My dad likes to tell that story. From there, I went on to, starting to sing, Motown. And then when The Little Mermaid came out, that was really the Disney Renaissance of the 80s and 90s. It started with The Little Mermaid and learning a part of your world. That was amazing. That was absolutely amazing. So that was one of those songs that I learned at a really young age and could just belt out. And I love songs that allow you to become a character and emote as the character. So Disney songs, which are basically, Broadway style songs, and then Broadway songs themselves, I love to sing because I love to get lost in the storytelling of those songs. So yeah, Ariel is just very special to me. When she first came out, my husband's reaction was, do we have to go to the American Girl doll store today? Again, I have the best husband in the whole world. Not just because he supports my hobby, but because he supports everything that I do. And he has the kindest heart of basically anyone I've ever met. I was not intending to get her when we went to the American Girl place for my birthday that year, but she was sold out online and they just happened to have her there. My husband knew how much I wanted her, so I got Ariel. And then after that, we went and we ate upstairs at the American Girl Cafe, and it honestly was some of the best food I've ever had in my life. It was by far the best gluten-free pizza I have ever had. So that was a really, really fun, magical day. I had never eaten at the American Girl Cafe before. So the fact that I got to do that just a few months before we left California and we're no longer going to be anywhere within proximity to an American Girl store was very nice. So that was part of also why I think he went really big for my AG experience that year. You know, the nearest American Girl store now is like 8 hours away. This is my Ariel and I love her. Yeah, you're a beautiful girl. The next girl in my collection. So I did go back to the American Girl place one more time before we moved. And it was because of the historical re-release. Okay, that was part of it. So I had a bunch of points that I acquired for my birthday trip, and I didn't want those to go to waste. But also my mother-in-law, who is like the sweetest human ever, which it makes sense why my husband is just the kindest soul in the world. She loves Anne of Green Gables. They re-released this girl. I thought, and I talked to my husband about it, and then we talked to my father-in-law about it. We thought, well, she's very Anne of Green Gables. Would my mother-in-law want a Kirsten doll for Mother's Day? So for Mother's Day, we told my in-laws that we're going to go to the American Girl place so that I could use my points, and did they want to come with us? And then when they met us there, we walked them into the store and I showed them the historical re-release, and then we just kind of said, hey, do you want to get a doll for Mother's Day? And then surprised her with the fact that we were actually there for a Mother's Day celebration. And so we sent her on her own little shopping spree. She decided not to get a doll. I had purchased an ILY doll for her, one of the 18-inch dolls, for her for Christmas a couple of years before. And she wanted to just keep that doll and then get clothes and accessories for her. So that's what she ended up doing. But it was so sweet because I don't know if she notices this. So if you see this, hi, I love you. But when we asked her if she wanted to get a doll and she realized that this was a Mother's Day thing, all of a sudden I just saw her eyes turn red and glassy, and I was like, oh, we did good. You know, she feels seen. She knows she's loved, and she's about to be spoiled. So, yeah. So anyway, I used my points that day to get Kirsten. I fell in love with Kirsten actually through Babbity Kate's like 5-hour video discussing Kirsten's books and collection. I have probably watched that at least 5 times all the way through. Right before my cat got sick, I remember I spent a whole day with him. Like, he was in my lap and I was just making like doll Christmas decorations and ornaments and stuff like that. And it was one of those nice cozy days that I really needed. LA was a lot of stress, and to have a day where I just sat with my boy, I watched a doll video and did some crafts was exactly what I needed. And it was that experience that made me fall in love with Kirsten. So Kirsten kind of holds my boy for me, if that makes any sense. Also, this girl's like kind of crazy and I love her. I love how stubborn and determined her character is, and her affinity for small animals, because that's definitely something that we share. I, however, not a pyro. But she is, and you know what? We love that for her in our community. My husband and I have a saying for Kirsten. She observes, she does not judge. Because when I got her, because she was like a reproduction, it took me a long time to figure out which dolls I wanted to like get the vintage version of and which ones I was okay getting a reproduction of. And ultimately I decided I was okay getting a reproduction of Kirsten. Obviously, I decided that. But I used to, when I first got her, I just put her on a doll stand and I would just take her from room to room with me. And she would sit near me or across from me, or sometimes I'd put her on top of our bookshelves. And because I wasn't directly interacting with her, she was observing us. And so we just said, she observes, she does not judge. And that is Kirsten's whole vibe in our house. So anyway, I have taken her braids out once. I took her braids out when I got her school dress. I love this dress. I really, really, really want to get her Drindle. If I don't get it, then I'm going to try to make it because, you know, prices. But I took out her braids because for me, hair play is one of the best ways to bond with a doll. And so that was really nice. So I did that back in, I think, May of this year when I was able to get her her school dress. So yeah, anyway, that's my Kirsten. Okay, so I got Kirsten on May 26th of 2023, and I got the next doll in September of 2023. She was the first doll that I got once we moved to New England, and that is Summer McKinney. I've told you, I am a sucker for the Nenea face mold. I think this girl is absolutely gorgeous. I wasn't a fan really of her collection, but I think the light pink pastel highlights in her hair are really pretty. I actually had those in my hair right before I met my husband. But I think her coloring is really, really pretty. I love her face mold. And I at one point, when I was in my, when I was in my 20s, I had my own dog training and dog walking business, and I made dog biscuits that my clients would purchase directly from me. I wasn't a huge fan of her collection, but I saw a lot of myself in her as a character, you know, her as the little entrepreneur, etc. So yeah, the first time my dad basically loaned me out to train a friend's dog when I was, I think, like 10 years old. For some reason, I innately understood how to train animals from a really young age. And when I was little, we had a family friend who showed dogs, and he primarily showed German Shepherds and Belgian Taverns. And he was trying to teach his Belgian Tavern how to shake. It was the youngest of his 3 dogs. And he couldn't get the dog to shake. And he essentially brought the dog to me. And then, you know, within probably about 15 or 20 minutes, I taught the dog, at about the age of 10, I taught the dog how to shake. That was a cool experience as a child, to have an adult come to me and say, hey, I can't do this thing. Can you please do it for me? And it be a skill-based thing, but also something that, like, you as a person, for whatever reason, have an innate ability for. I think that was very good for me. And in Dutch culture, at least the way Dutch culture always worked in my family and extended family and whatnot, you're basically treated like a little adult your whole life. You were always a little adult, which means your parents don't talk down to you. You know, if my dad would use a word I didn't understand, I would just ask him what it meant, and then he would explain it to me. In Dutch culture, it's a dairy farming culture, largely. And, you know, basically your family has a farm, you're expected to work the farm, so you're an adult from the time you know, you can do chores, you're doing chores, and those chores are milking cows, feeding cows. My grandmother learned how to drive a tractor when she was 12. So that's just the way the culture is. So I was always treated as a little adult, which I think was very, very good for me personally, and building my self-esteem and building my self-worth. And yeah, that was just cool. I like it. And I also think that's part of why my dad and I are so close, not just the single parent thing, but the fact that I never felt like I was subservient to my parent. I felt like my parent was looking out for me, and we had an actual relationship, a friendship outside of father-daughter. It was friends. So yeah, anyway. So Summer is my dog training little friend. I still love to dispense free dog training advice. So the next girl, I feel like changed the trajectory of everything for me. I'm not even going to introduce her. This is my Addie. I feel like I'm going to cry. My dad got me Addie for my birthday this year. So in February of 2025, my dad got me Addie. Again, she was the first doll I ever wanted. And I asked my dad for her when I was about 9 or 10 years old when I got the catalog. And he said yes. And after a while, I just said never mind, because I just felt guilty that she cost so much. When they re-released her, I asked my dad if he would get her for me for my birthday, and he did. Addie is incredibly important to me. I love her dearly. And if you're coming from my Instagram, you probably know this. This past February, I started something called Addie Week, or Addie Appreciation Week. And that was basically because the internet overlords removed Addie's hashtag from social media platforms, so that if you typed in Addie Walker, she no longer came up. That was not something I was okay with. Another AGIGer suggested to me, they said, well, why don't you do an Addie Week, like the way they do Just Mold Week? And I said, well, do you want to do it? Because, you came up with the idea. They said, no, it's fine. So they gave me the initial idea for it, but then I got to set the parameters for what Addie Week actually was. And as someone who couldn't afford, or at least felt they couldn't afford American Girl dolls growing up, and at other times definitely could not afford American Girl dolls, let me tell you, I didn't want there to be a barrier to entry. That's the thing that's hard about our hobby is, the thing that's difficult about our hobby is it's based around very expensive dolls. And that means that there's a barrier to entry into the hobby. And that can be very, very discouraging, and it can be quite othering for people. And I didn't want anyone to feel like there was a barrier to entry for Addie Week. I didn't want them to feel that, well, I don't have an Addie doll, so I can't participate. And so when I put out the announcement for Addie Week and, the subsequent, like announcement details and whatnot, I made it clear to everyone, you don't have to have an Addie doll. This is about showing appreciation for Addie, for her stories, for, what she means to our community, but also, the community at large, people who feel represented by Addie and her stories. So I wanted people to get creative and do whatever they wanted to show their appreciation for Addie. There was one person who made paper dolls of Addie to tell Addie's stories with her existing dolls. And I just thought that was so amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Addie Week actually had over 500 entries which I was so impressed. The announcement was seen over 30,000 times. You guys were amazing in sharing it and getting it out, you know, all over the internet. And I can't wait to do it in 2026. So yeah, I love this girl so, so, so much. When I got her, it felt like I had been united with like my long lost friend, because I had wanted her since I was like 9 or 10 years old, and circumstances, they were what they were. I know my dad would have, you know, made it happen when I was little, but again, I knew that, you know, like at one point I had been in private school, but we didn't have private school money anymore. You know, things happened. The economy was crazy back in the 90s, and, you know, our family took some hits like a lot of families did. And so I wasn't comfortable, you know, with asking for something expensive. But, you know, things are a bit different now. And I was just so glad that I got to be united with my Addie, and specifically that she came from my dad. I didn't want her to come from anyone else. I didn't want to purchase her myself. I wanted it to be the fulfillment of like that childhood promise, if that makes any sense. Yeah. And I really wanted to get an Addie that came in her cinnamon dress. And, you know, I know that they had Be Forever Addie, who's absolutely beautiful, and her dress is beautiful. But that was the one thing where it's like, I really want the fulfillment of that childhood dream, and I want to have my cinnamon dress, you know, Addie. And I finally got that, and she means so much to me. And, you know, she, to me, represents what our community is capable of when we really just, you know, show kindness and love. When we come together and we work to, you know, try and serve something other than ourselves. You know, it's, again, I have a contentious relationship with this hobby because it is so consumer based. I try not to make the hobby about the consumption. I try to make it about the enjoyment of, you know, spending time with my dolls, of, you know, playing with my dollhouse, decorating it, taking photos of my dolls, taking them places with me, and not so much about the consumption of, hey, what does American Girl come out with this time? Like, yeah, absolutely, I buy new things from them once in a while, and, you know, I do buy new dolls from them once in a while, but for me, it's about the actual enjoyment of these little doll friends. So, yeah, I love her, and she means more to me than I can express. So, and to all of you who participated in Addie Week this year, thank you, and get ready for 2026. And the next doll in my collection is Zora. So she's actually the Tiana doll. I got Zora on March 16th of this year, and I just think she is one of the prettiest dolls that I've ever seen. Like, she is just gorgeous. She photographs beautifully, and I was able to get her, I think, for like $60 or $70 by combining different coupons and points and everything like that. And they had like some sale going on as well at the time that I ordered her. So yeah, I think she came down to like $60 something. That was extremely exciting for me. I think the Claudia mold is so gorgeous, and this girl in particular just has such a beautiful air about her. She reminds me kind of Whitney Houston, so I almost named her Whitney. I named her Zora because the weekend that she arrived, my husband and I, so we're video game nerds. We're nerds of all different kinds. But my husband and I love the Zelda series of games, and we even had a Zelda themed wedding. Like, from the outside it would look like a normal wedding to anyone else, but to anyone who loves the franchise as much as we do, they would see the theming. So anyway, it was done in a very discreet way, very classy. I loved it. Very demure. But anyway, so the weekend that Zora arrived, we were playing through the Zora Domain in Tears of the Kingdom, which is the most recent Zelda game in the franchise. And we both thought that would be a really cool name for her to commemorate the fact that we got her when we played through one of our favorite areas in the game. So yeah, that's how she got the name Zora. And she's one of my favorite dolls to photograph. She's just so stunning. She's so photogenic. I used her for some of the like promotional photos for my shop drop last week for the Winky cardigan. And yeah, she's such a pretty girl. I love her. And I think she's quite literally the cutest doll in my collection. Like, other dolls are lovely and wonderful and beautiful, but this girl, like, she just has a cute quotient that is just through the roof. So yeah, she was very easy to bond with, and she hangs out with us a lot when we're playing video games. She's become like our gaming buddy. So yeah, this is Zora. So the next doll on my list I got on April 8th of this year of 2025, and she'd been on my list for a really long time, and I got her for an outstanding deal for only $34 on Mercari, and it is Miss Isabelle Palmer. I just think she is such a precious doll, and she came with her hair extension and most of her meat outfit. She didn't come with her shoes, but she came with her pants and her top. So she and Hazel May are best friends in my little doll world. Yeah, I just think she is such a pretty doll. I really wanted her for photographs, and also, like I said, I love dolls with curly hair, but for just playing with, like, this is a very satisfying sensation for me. I do like dolls with just very straight hair once in a while, and I don't have many of those in my collection, but if you've noticed, my collection is actually very light on blonde dolls. I'm drawn to dolls that are brunette naturally, but I think because I sort of ignored the blonde dolls for so long, they kind of piled up towards the end. She was in incredible condition. She didn't really need to be fixed up at all, but I still am very thorough, and, you know, I go over my dolls, tighten their limbs, wash their body cloth, you know, clean down everything, wash their hair, whatnot. Just because I want to know that they're super clean before I start cuddling with them and hanging out with them and, you know, putting them with my other dolls. But yeah, she is an absolute beauty, and I love her, and she looks great and everything. All right, and the next doll in my collection I got the same week as Isabelle. So this doll arrived the day after Isabelle did. I had wanted her for quite a while, and I'd been shopping for her for a good price. And on the secondhand market, for whatever reason, this doll goes anywhere from like $60 to $150 just for the doll in her meat outfit. So when I came across her full collection for $170, I ordered it. I love her collection. It's Miss Lainey Holland. I think Lainey is one of the cutest dolls. I love her, you know, her soft curls with her classic mold and little hazel eyes. She's just so precious, and she's beautiful to photograph. This is what I was saying in my last video, that there are more dolls in the second half of my collection that I specifically got for photography, and Lainey is one of those dolls. Like, I love her. I love her character. I see a lot of myself in Lainey's books. Yeah, there's this great illustration in, I think it's the first chapter of her first book, where she's walking with her little nose up in the air, just like very determined. And I showed that to my dad when I was reading the book, and he just burst out laughing, because it's like, yep, that's my daughter. So I identify with her character a lot, maybe even more so than Molly and Sam, because she comes at everything from a scientific perspective. Like, she's analyzing everything and looking for a cause and effect, and she's looking for relationships between how things work, and that's very much the way that I operate in the world. I see a lot of myself in her. Also, I have a lot bunny. I've kept rabbits for over 20 years now, and my last two have been Holland Lops, and they're just absolutely wonderful. So yeah, the fact that she's a science girly with a lot bunny, I'm like, yeah, this is for me. I love, you know, what her stories stand for, what She Is a Doll stands for, as far as environmentalism and whatnot. And I could not wait to get my hands on her to photograph. So I try to make sure that when I'm taking photos for AGIG, that I don't lean too hard any one particular way. I want to make sure that my feed is always very diverse. So because I got Lainey and Isabel so close together, and I specifically wanted to take photos of Lainey for Earth Day, I haven't posted a photo yet of Isabel, so that should be coming soon. Oh, and she's wearing the Winky cardigan in Whimsy, which was, again, part of my drop over the weekend. So I love this. It's a very Lainey fit, so I think it looks great on her. Very fun. All right, so the next girl in my collection, oh my gosh, I was so excited. This is the first time that I've ever found an American Girl doll in the wild. Like, I have been thrifting consistently since I was 12 or 13 years old. When I started toy collecting, that was how I did it, was by going to thrift stores and finding toys that I wanted to fill in my collection. Originally, I started with My Little Ponies, Care Bears, and Rainbow Brite, because again, 80s baby. Yeah, we don't live anywhere near a thrift store. And my husband and I were on a day trip basically for a medical appointment for him, and we found a thrift store, and he asked me if I wanted to go. I was like, sure. We haven't been to a thrift store in a really long time. And we went, and I found Just Like You 40. She's so precious. I love her so much. Her name is Sophia. I named her after Sophia Nygaard because my husband and I were heavily into a Sophia and Tyler binge when we found her, and I wanted my next brunette doll to be named Sophia after her, and I found her for $4.99. She was just there waiting for me. She has a stain on her knee, which I like to think looks like a bruise. I bruise like a peach. I always have. So, you know, we're just matching little bruise twins. Her wig is a little unfortunate. Like, it's not too dry or anything. But after I got her home and I was refurbishing her, I did find that some of her hair had been cut. So I just keep it up in this style, which hides the cut, so that's fine. But she's such a cutie. I love her so much. When I'm crocheting, she's usually like my little model that I try everything on. So a lot of times she's downstairs in our living room just chilling with us. So she is absolutely adorable. I loved how stoked my husband was when I found her, because he understood from years of, you know, watching me thrift and watching me collect these girls and whatnot. He knew what it was for me to find one in the wild for the first time, and he was so happy for me. I was so ecstatic. So anyway, this is my Sophia. I love her very, very much. She was, you know, the surprise baby. I didn't know she was coming, and here she is, and she's just darling. I love her. All right, so the next doll in my collection, we're just down to two more, and that's it. She doesn't really need an introduction. It's Raquel Reyes, Girl of the Year 2026. First of all, I love her. She's so beautiful. She does look so much like Maritza. If I still had Maritza, I don't think I could have justified getting her, because I like my dolls to be, you know, pretty diverse in appearance. But I didn't have Maritza anymore, so I was so happy to get her. I wasn't planning to get her until my birthday, so February next year. I like that as, you know, a thing to look forward to. And I also like waiting for sales and points and stuff like that. I caved early. In all honesty, I was having a really, really tough week. Not that that justifies overspending, but we all fall short sometimes. To get a little personal for a second, I guess I've been personal this whole time, but you know what I mean. So if you follow me on Instagram, you might know that about a month ago, I made a post revealing that I had recently been diagnosed with an eating disorder. Fun stuff. I've been seeing someone, about every other week to, talk through things, check in on where I am with my eating. There's a lot of talk that goes into working through it and where it comes from and all of that. I went, and the conversation that I had with my clinician just kind of destroyed me for a week. Like, my nervous system was just a disaster, and I was in really rough shape. I wasn't sleeping well, everything was overwhelming. And I decided the day after Raquel released, which was almost a week after that conversation, like, I'm gonna order Raquel. I need something to look forward to. Basically, I wanted to treat myself. So I ordered her early, and I'm so glad I did. I was really hoping that I could use her for my shop launch, because I thought that she would look really great, particularly in the Winky cardigan that Lainey was wearing, which she arrived an hour before I had to leave to take those photos. Like, an hour. She wasn't supposed to arrive until the next day, and I had a hard deadline of, the photos are being taken this day, this time, at this place, and that was just how it worked out. And she arrived an hour early, so it feels like it was meant to be. But I love her so much. She is so beautiful. I gave her this shrug cardigan that I made. It's basically, this is what the Winky design was modeled after. Like, this was the first draft of it. And I gave her this because it's really important to me that my dolls are dressed for the season. We're in chunky sweater weather. If she's gonna wear these little beachy pajamas, she's gonna be cold. So I gave her this big chunky sweater in like a blush pink so that she could still be appropriately warm. She's gorgeous. I did notice she has a little bit of an issue right around the base of her neck. The base of her neck does not lay properly. And I've seen that on other Raquels and other stitching issues around the neck, like where the zip tie goes. So that's a little concerning as far as a quality control thing. One other little quality thing, she has this one little cowlick. So I've tried to like wet it down and get it to stay down. I think if I do that a couple more times and I'm a little bit more aggressive, it'll work. But that was just another kind of weird quality thing. But otherwise, her face is perfect. Her meat outfit was great. Yeah, so gorgeous girl. And drum roll, please. The most recent doll in my collection who needs no introduction. It's Elfie. I love her so much. I had been wanting to see Wicked for a long time. Like, when I used to see the books by McGuire at Target, and this was back in like the early 2000s, 2010, something like that, alongside his other prequel stories, because he has a whole series of different stories where basically it subverts the popular narrative about like Cinderella or Snow White, etc. Wicked is just the one that took off. And I always wanted to read those books and essentially just didn't have the time. I got the book Wicked, I think, for $1 at a library sale in California right before you moved. So it's sitting on my shelf right over there with the original Oz books, which were gifts from my dad. And that being said, I had never seen Wicked. I had never seen the stage production, and I didn't see the film when it came out. So when I saw the photos of her come out, it kind of sparked my interest again, and like, that's something that I still really want to see. And every weekend, my husband and I watch a movie together. Sometimes it's old, sometimes it's new. And we had been meaning to watch Wicked, and I was like, hey, let's watch Wicked. And I told him, there are AG dolls of these characters that are coming out, and I need to know whether or not I'm going to regret not getting them. And we watched Wicked, and it was absolutely the artistic experience that I needed. I never felt so represented by a character before. I've been one of those people my entire life. I can't ignore injustice. And if that means sticking my neck out and speaking truth to power, like, it may not make things better for me, but if I can protect someone else or make something better for someone else down the line, it's worth it. Elphie really, really spoke to me. There have been other pop culture, popular media characters where it's like, oh, smart girl, speaks truth to power. But it's usually, I'm going to say, more self-serving and more about personal development than it is about defying a system. And it's terrifying. And you're meant to lose. Like, the system is designed for you to lose if you're the little guy. But I can't back down. And so defying gravity just like wrecked me in the best way possible. Wicked was like all I could talk about for days. It was all I listened to for days. Cast interviews were all I watched for days. And of course, I immediately had to learn the music, and I think I learned Defying Gravity in like an afternoon. That film was such an affirming experience for me. I realized though that the story also hits on a lot of the themes from the book series I'm currently developing. So I'm putting off reading Wicked until I have down essentially everything about my world, all documented for reference and for my own protection. Anyone ever says like, oh, this was inspired by Wicked, it's like, no, I started reading the book on this day. All of this was developed back here. As a creative, I just want to make sure to protect myself and my work. So that's something I have to make work of over the next couple weeks, so I can finally take a book week again and just read for a week, because that's how I like to balance my time now. Is I'll take a week off and just read, and I unplug for about a week from social media so I can just be. Elphie is absolutely gorgeous. I love her so much. She's actually prettier in person than her stock photos. I don't know if she's coming across properly on camera now, but I can't wait to photograph her. In my unboxing video, I was reading the back of the box, like, to you, the viewer, and it was hard for me not to get choked up. Like I was getting choked up reading the back of her box. Like, that's how much this character means to me. It's basically the first time I've ever felt represented by, like, truly represented at my core by a character. I think one of the defining experiences for me has been that, I've had a disability my whole life. No one ever really treated me differently about it until I got into the workplace. That experience just completely reshaped the way that I engaged with having a disability. I used to not mention it because I didn't think that it mattered. And then I realized how poorly informed people are about what disabilities are, how they affect people, what they look like, that invisible disabilities are just as real as visible disabilities. So disability advocacy is important to me. It's important to me to speak up about what it's like to be epileptic. And then when I found out that I'm also neurodiverse, that was very important for me to talk to people about, because the only way that we learn what it's like to be someone else's version of human is through connection. It's through conversation. It's through talking. It's through vulnerability. And none of that is easy. But it's something that I have a passion for and I feel driven to do. It's part of why Addie Week was so important to me. The idea of people being othered for something that they didn't ask to be, but just something that they are, just breaks my heart. So I will always be your advocate. So that's it. And again, she's perfect. I feel very blessed to have the collection of 33 dolls that you've seen. I love them all very much, and I'm very appreciative of the fact that I have them. That's my girl, my perfect girl. Alrighty, everyone. So thank you so much for tuning in. Please let me know. I have a couple questions. So one, who is your favorite doll in my collection? Sorry if that's a little self-centered, but I'm curious. I know there are some dolls in my collection that are extremely unpopular, like Miss Penelope back there. And there are a lot of very popular dolls that I don't have. So I'm curious to know, who do you like in my collection? And then also let me know, who is your favorite doll in your collection? I would love to know. And if you have any questions, please just post those down in the comments, and I will, get back to you as soon as I'm able. Also, my DMs are always open on Instagram, so if you ever want to reach out, please just do so. I'd love to hear from you. All right, thank you guys so much, and I will see you next week. Bye.